Quadrilaterals. Quadrilaterals, you know, are four-sided figures. Quad means four, you know, just like if you have a quad motorcycle, it has four wheels. So quadrilateral, it just means it has four sides, and there's different types, and you've probably heard of all of these, but maybe I'm going to give you a little bit more information about them. So you know a parallelogram has two pairs of sides that are both parallel and congruent. They have to be the same length. But maybe you didn't know that angles opposite each other are also congruent. So if I want to indicate congruence, I can show that this angle here, I don't know if you can see that very well, and this angle here, those two angles, this angle and this angle are congruent. And these two angles, all four angles don't have to be congruent, but the angles opposite each other have to be congruent. So maybe the best thing is if I label these A, B, C, D. Angle B is congruent to angle D, and angle A is congruent to angle C. They're going to have the same measurement. They have to if it's a parallelogram. Now, a rectangle is a parallelogram because both sides are parallel and both sides are congruent. It's a special type of parallelogram because we know that it has to have four right angles. So we know that about a parallelogram, that all these angles have to be right angles. And then a square is both a parallelogram because, again, the opposite sides are parallel and congruent, and it's also a rectangle. But if they have all four congruent sides, all four sides are congruent, and all four, as well as four congruent angles, then the best name for it is a square. It's still a parallelogram, it's still a rectangle, but the one that gives you the most detail, tells you the most about this shape, is the name square. Then we have another one that's kind of like a square, but not a square, because it doesn't have to have right angles. But a rhombus is a parallelogram. Opposite sides, again, are congruent and parallel with four congruent sides. All sides are the same length. So these sides here are all going to have the same length. Like a parallelogram, these angles here angle A is going to be congruent to angle C, and angle B is going to be congruent to angle D. Another thing that's kind of cool about these, and I wish I had a better picture for you, that if we draw the diagonal in here, we draw the diagonal across here, and we draw the diagonal here, that these are going to form right angles. This is all right angles in here, so these two diagonals are perpendicular to each other, and they also cut each other in half, so they're called perpendicular bisectors. So that's kind of, if you want to make a perfect rhombus, it's good to know that the diagonals are perpendicular bisectors. So actually, a square is also a rhombus, but it's a rhombus with right angles. And then we have the one trapezoid that's a lot different, because this is a quadrilateral. It's still quadrilateral, it still has four sides. It's not a parallelogram, though, with exactly one pair of parallel sides. So we can have a parallelogram like this. These two sides are parallel. Or we can have one like this. They all have four sides. When we're talking about this, we call these the two bases. And then we get the height by looking at the perpendicular, the straight up and down distance. And in this case, because this is a right angle, this would be the height. So that's what a trapezoid is. Also on this page is about congruent figures. So let me just add this in here. So congruent polygons are polygons with the same shape and same size, right? Just like we've learned in the past, I think. Their corresponding parts must be congruent. And the symbol for congruent is this.